Well, welcome everyone. We got a really good show for you today. I can't tell you how excited I am about this. So, welcome to this town hall number 148. The goal is that I want to do the last one on my deathbed. That's what I'm hoping for. Um, and Mike will interview me. Good news is it might not be that long for now. It's pretty hot in Florida. Anyway, Wednesday,
That's why
August
they made
19th,
AC.
2026. AC down here is hard to get. My
Oh,
name is John Best. I'm CEO and co-founder of Best Innovation Group. And you can check us out at www.big-fintech.com. And Elliot's going to give us a little bit of information about that in just a minute. But with me, as always, is and I'll just tell the story real quick. When the pandemic hit, didn't know what to do.
that's
And I
right.
thought, well, we have this Zoom account. Let's try just inviting everybody we know to the Zoom and we'll all get together and decide what it is. And it turned into
Yep.
what's here. But the first call I made when I had that idea was Mike Lawson. And he said, John, got your back. I'm in.
I'm in.
And I didn't have to, I knew that'd be the case anyways. And he's been with us ever since. If
Yep.
you're not watching CU broadcast, and I don't even know what you're doing with your life, to be honest with you.
I don't either.
Um, it's how many episodes do you have out there now? It's got to be.
Uh, I don't know specifically, but I know we're over 9,000, if that's believable. And yeah, it kind of makes me want to fall out of my chair.
Well,
So, yeah.
Glenn and I have over, I think, 500 podcasts out
Right
there,
on,
so that's
guys.
something.
I've been saying seven.
Oh, is it seven now?
I thought so.
Well,
Seven
I took a
episodes?
bunch of them down because you were so, all that profanity and stuff.
Rotary.
Yeah. Anyways, so Mikey's here. We forgot to introduce Glenn. Usually there's a big
Glenn's here
picture of
too.
Glenn here. I
Yeah.
see him, but usually there's a big picture of Glenn in here, but got taken down. So, but
We
Glenn
need that.
Zavardi's with us.
He's back.
He's an expert from 420 cannabis systems. Um, Actually, that's not his piece, but if he's the best payments and data guy that I possibly know. So if you've never worked with him, and a fantastic interviewer and a good friend. So
Yep.
we
Yep.
want to thank Illuma, our current sponsor. And I'll tell you what, you've never needed Illuma more than now. And today, what we're talking about actually relates to that, which is really, really cool.
Yep.
So we're going to get right to it because we have a lot to discuss. I'm not going to spend super long going over all this. Let's go to the next slide. Elliot, you want to take this one?
Yeah. This Innovation Club, one of the biggest initiatives that we did at Big when we first started Big was to get a group of credit unions together to kind of share, do a mind meld and share everything we know. And if you love the CU Town Hall, Innovation Club is like CU Town Hall just on steroids. It's really great. We meet 10 times virtually a year and twice in person. And we've got actually some openings available. So if anyone would like to check it out for free, we're going to do our next one is in September.
Oh, cool.
And they're always on what are the Tuesdays? They're always the second Tuesday, or is it the third Tuesday? Third Tuesday of the month. So if you are interested, if you're a credit union interested in checking it out, drop me a line in the chat and I'll get out to you.
Is this a live version, Elliot, or is it because you guys have them live, right, John?
Yeah, we have
There's a
two
live one
live.
coming out. Yeah, we got two live ones. The live one is in October, but
Oh, okay.
we got a virtual one in September. So
Okay.
and we've got we can probably get 3 or 4 guests into the September one. So if you're interested or you just want to check it out, I think you'll love it. And
Sure.
so just drop your name into the chat and I'll get in contact with you.
All right. Let's keep moving. VerifyDial. Man, when he first told me about this. But we got to introduce the man, the legend, the founder, the Alpharank. And so I'll tell the story. I remember I was watching, I want to say it was at, maybe it was Finovation. I can't remember, but it might have been one of the first CUNA versions of the Finovation, whatever we called it back then, speed rounds. And
Yeah.
he came up and just blew my mind. He blew my mind as a presenter and his ideas, but more importantly, the product he had was genius. How do you find influencers for your credit union? How you drive that forward? It was using the latest state-of-art technology, state-of-the-art stuff. And here he is again, and he's conquering a problem that is huge. And so I'm going to just share a quick story because I want you to hear this, Brian. You haven't heard this story before, so I'm going to share it with you. I was at a credit union not too long ago, and I happened to be at the actual credit union itself, in the lobby, and they were trying to talk this little old lady out of sending her life savings to this romance scam guy. and they could not do it. They just couldn't make it happen. And I remember that I want to say it was Jonathan. I can't remember. One of my buddies we just had an innovation club meeting of all things, and this was something that came up that we all were talking about how tenacious the people are that come in to get tricked into this and how you can't talk them out of it. But he had got some of the correspondence from that and had showed us some of that correspondence. So I was able to get that and show it to this lady. And because it exactly matched the stuff she had been getting, it was the first time I'd ever seen us overturn that. And that was a genesis for a lot of ideas for us. But this is rampant right now. So I can't wait to hear what you have to talk about. And this is exactly the kind of stuff I think we should be doing as an industry. So I'll lead in with that.
Yeah, thanks, John. I have, I mean, I actually keep it here, the AXFI 2008.
Yes, yes. You
Yeah,
did win the
throwback.
AXFI award.
Well, I'm so grateful to be back, in this space, especially with credit unions, which are my favorite. I'm a card-carrying member myself. I basically took a break from fintech and got into carbon removal. I did an extended Musk-backed family ocean geoengineering company, and kind of learned about regulatory innovation. And then I found myself in EU ETS, basically European regulatory innovation for ship decarbonization. So you might, and then I did a Namibian biochar project, anything that basically helps people. So I'm a very mission-driven founder, and you might say, well, why am I back with you? My mother-in-law got scammed. So she was involved in a romance scam that was leading to, depending on how you count it, quarter, $500,000 investment scam. It was hybrid, online, offline, synthetic identity. It was a mess. And if you've ever run into someone that's a victim of a romance scam, you'll find that convincing them after the fact that it was a scammer is pretty difficult. And so I started thinking about, well, how could you prevent this earlier? And it turns out that different countries are actually way ahead of us on this. And there's kind of two sides to scams. Sometimes it's like, oh, Elon Musk has a real great deal on Bitcoins, greed, or fake invoices, fake bills, impersonation. So the UK and Singapore both have basically a 911 for scam number in different models. The Singapore's is a little bit more government run. We might call it heavy-handed here in the States, even though it is private. And then the UK is a member-owned initiative, which sounds good on paper, but it's kind of like VeriSign, where everybody has to pay a fee, and then they cut out all the other industries. So crypto, forget about it. Alternative lenders, not included. And I looked at bringing those models to the US, and I said, well, I don't want it to be a government-based approach. I think it should be free. I think it should be opt-in. And I don't want it to just be one industry, because if you look at similar numbers, has anyone ever called 811 before, the call
No.
before you dig line as a homeowner? So it's basically the number you call to not hit power, fiber, gas under your house. And I think it was
Sometimes
2005.
it's called Cherry in different counties. It used to be called
Yeah.
Cherry.
Yeah, pre-2005, there were like 70 to 80 numbers, and as a result, almost nobody called them. And I think where we are right now with our anti-fraud, anti-scam numbers is the same. There's so many of them, they're not bundled together. So the idea was, well, let's bring a version of this to the States. And I went out and recruited the people that did 211, 311, 411, 811, 911, and more recently, actually, the suicide hotline. And I gave them each piece of the company, kind of formed a syndicate and said, hey, do you think we could pull this off and reclaim a number? And let me show you how it works. So I'll do a few demos. Hey Siri, call VerifyDial. You can think of it as an evolution of directory assistance.
Welcome to VerifyDial. This automated, recorded system checks for scams. To start, please read or describe the suspicious message you received.
Yeah, I just got a text message from Amazon. It said my package is delayed due to Trump's tariffs, and I owe $50 that I need to pay via Zelle to a phone number that's 888-222-4444.
That sounds like a scam. Amazon will not ask you to pay for tariffs via Zelle. The verified number for Amazon is 1-888-280-4331. Would you like me to connect you?
Yes, please. And so now it'll patch me to Amazon, just like the old,
Transferring you now.
411. And it'll do, romance scams. It'll actually be a lot more complicated. I can do ViStar Credit Union next.
Welcome to Amazon.
So that's
Please
Amazon.
note that this call may.
So I'll go again. History call, VerifyDial, because it's fast. It's fun to demo. And
Welcome
anyone
to
can call this
VerifyDial.
too.
This automated, recorded system checks for scams. To start, please read or describe the suspicious message you received.
Yeah, I got a phone call from someone that sounded like my banker at ViStar Credit Union. They said I had a login recently from Berlin, Germany, and they gave me a Skype number to call them back at. They texted it to me. The Skype is ViStar CU 11121.
This sounds like a scam. ViStar Credit Union's verified number is 1-800-445-6289. Would you like me to connect you?
Yes, please. And then it'll transfer me to ViStar. So you're wondering, what does it do with those little pieces of information, right? The number, the Zelle account, who's impersonating? Well, we're not sure yet, which is why we have conversations like this. But the idea is to feed it, there you go,
You are calling.
into threat intelligence, places. So the idea is if it's a bill, we can verify a bill, and we're working on those partnerships. If it's a scam, perhaps that data should be circulated. So you'll see that the Cyber Threat Alliance is part of this. It's obviously a big problem, and we just care a lot about trying to progress a solution. The number we're focused on in particular is 411. The volume's dropped from 6 billion calls a year to 50 million.
Oh, wow.
And AT&T doesn't even offer it. So it's kind of like an abandoned lot across the street. So what I tell investors or people normally don't put money into this company. It's kind of a passion project. But if you do, think about it more like property development, where we see an asset, we have an awareness of how to get access to that, and we're herding cats to figure out how to do this. So Singapore and the UK are already ahead of us. And then on bill verification, that's another opportunity, right? Like LATAM countries have what's called a CTC model, and that's a centralized transaction clearance. We don't have that in the States. We have a post-audit model. And now we don't want a CTC model because that was set up, for heavy-handed government oversight. But at the same time, if you look at their fraud numbers and their speed of payment, our bills are being paid later and later because, frankly, people are not sure if they're a scam or not, among other pressures. And, we have a white paper on it. We think that bringing a hybrid of these international systems to the States and making it inclusive, so it's not just large banks, it's not just banks, right? We have AAPL, Association of Private Lenders. We have retailers. We cover firefighters to utilities to government, everything. So we're kind of trying to imagine what 411 looks like and then have a model that's self-sustaining rather than requires people that participate in it to pay essentially a tax just to be included. So that's the VerifyDial joint initiative. As far as the ask, we already have, let's see, as far as credit union leagues, we have Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and Virginia. We have California, Mississippi, and Tennessee, Nevada, Utah, Virginia, Washington. We don't yet have Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Illinois, New York, Oklahoma, or Oregon. So if you are members of those state leagues, we'd love for them to join all the other names that we mentioned. And
You should go to Max, Brian. Go to Go West Max conference this fall, and they cover all those states that you just mentioned. There's
That's a
6
great
Arizona,
idea.
yeah, Washington, Nevada, yeah. So
Yeah, if they'll have us, we'd love to be there.
Yeah, they would love to have you.
So anyway,
So
that's
the ask
verified
here,
out. Yeah, we don't have it all figured out, is what I always say. So we're always looking for input. Everything you've heard, has come from conversations with the leagues and getting feedback. So if you have opinions on how this should be run, it's a delicate line to walk between privacy and protection, is what we tell everybody. We lean towards a philosophy of don't map the victim, map the scam. Meaning if it's not a scam, you shouldn't retain that data. If it is a scam, you should only retain data on the scam, not who I am, not where I'm calling from, because so many scams prey on shame, guilt, those sort of factors. We don't want it to be another Palantir or Flock system, but at the same time, we can't remain unprotected. And yeah, John, I have more data. We actually run a system where we have a honeypot for scammers. So if anybody
Mhm.
wants to see that, we do about 170,000 calls a month with
Oh
scammers
man.
with our AI bots. We have no idea what to do with that data. So if anyone wants to
Oh, I
look
could.
at it,
I
we've used
actually.
it to train the model.
We've got you a connection to do that. Elliot will hook you up.
Yeah.
The fraud.watch people that we're working with, because their purpose is to, what we do for viruses, how we rank them and we track them. We want to do that for
Yeah.
scams. We want to create a
Oh.
classifying system like we do for both, and also for vulnerabilities like CVEs. And that's an ontology that Elliot and I have been working on with a company called Orachain. So we'll hook you up. But I have a question. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
genius, because as a kid, I always remember saying things like, "What's the 411 on that?" So like you've got this thing that's sort of built into the lexicon that
Yeah.
somehow has survived because I hadn't thought about 411. I mean, I think I've said it, in the past lately, but I hadn't thought about it as a service. But I clearly remember using it. And I
Mhm.
remember when it started texting you the information, I was like, "Oh, listen, look at us, we're living in the future." And now it's gone, and you could just yell at Siri to call whoever you want. It seems like I get your point on a property piece too. That is, I think this is so absolutely. This is like the same kind of thing. I'm sure you know what 711 does, right? 711 is for the hearing impaired, which we support as credit unions as well. Which is, if you call 711, you'll get an agent that will help you if you're hearing impaired. Call the call center or something like that. This just fits right into that. But tell me more.
Yeah, well, since we have a tech-oriented group here, I am willing to share the honeypot infrastructure if you want to see how we train this. I don't have shareability, but
We'll give you shareability. While you do that, I have a question.
shoot.
So one thing that seems like I would like to, if I'm, that seems like could be valuable is, and this is, I also am dual rolled now as a research head of research and development at Suncoast. Um, and one thing that we just recently had some huge success with is outbound AI calling for collections. We spent,
Interesting.
and we were surprised at how well it went. We spent a ton of time on it because we know it's sensitive, but it seems like that's an area too where it seems like not just train on the bad side of it, but train on the good side of it as well. That there's an opportunity for Canadians to go, "Hey, we're not a scam. Please talk to us," right? And collect that data. I'm sure you
Yes.
thought of it, but that's kind of where my head would go as well.
Well, yeah, you'll be surprised of the things I have not thought of, John, is really what we call it a joint initiative of the hardest part. I mean, I've described it as, right, we almost have crossed nearly 900 to 1,000 financial institutions represented now, but
Hmm.
and I think 17 letters. But the first three were brutal. And we learned that from the carbon removal space, is nobody wants to stand out. And then as you pass, I would say 20, it becomes, easier. So I'm mainly herding cats both on advocating for the support to reclaim 411, which is involved being involved in like the legislation in Nebraska, for example, against telcos and talking to state AGs, as well as herding the people that actually have the bill and invoice data to do an opt-in, which are, the aggregators. But in the process, we built what you're looking at right here. So if anyone cares about this data, again, we've used it internally. And what you're looking at is attack vectors. So these are all of our AIs. John, you might get a kick out of this. We actually train them on the data and they fight each other to see who can defend against scams the best.
Love it.
So it's been a really
That's how you
fantastic,
should do it. I mean, that's yeah. Just
yeah,
make sure they don't escape and attack the actual.
yes,
Uh,
yeah. And then, basically we launch them. So right now you can see the system's handling, oh, it's a busy day, over 10. And so we have all of the transcripts, the audio, and let's see. We got a
so interesting that one thing I didn't hear in your test call, but I'm seeing it on the screen. It was a question I was going to ask. I think Glenn was going to ask the same question. Is um, so you say, "Oh, I think that's a scam," and it immediately went to you gave the phone number. But in the case of some of these scams, for instance, one of the there's sometimes URLs involved. Like a scam, I would call about would be the one that I've seen a lot for toll booths is one where they're
Yeah.
they're sending you a toll booth length while you drive around.
Yep.
It
Get a
seems
lot
like
of
that being able to text 411 or forward a text would be useful. The second thing is it seems like once you confirm it's a scam, asking more questions about if the person's up for it. Would you mind if I asked you a few more questions about this? What time did they call? Like those are heuristics that could really drive. He's probably smiling because he's thought of all this. He's about to show us. That's why I'll shut up.
No, these are good ideas. It's mainly just gratitude for being here. We are like evaluating where to do some pilots. Obviously, not everybody has the ability to print, instructions or verifications on an invoice, so it depends what people use. So we've been working with AAPL, the Association of Private Lenders, who built their homegrown stacks to do some of the verification. But it's a really important question about how much data collection we want to do, right? So like the demo is nice because it's fast. I mean, it's faster than actually looking up or typing, a 10-digit number when you get like a property tax bill, which gave me the bill verification idea. Ironically, my wife thought we already did it, which I found hilarious. And I was like, oh, this is a new idea of how this actually helps.
It was so intuitive. She thought it was done. Like,
Yeah,
you mean your
exactly.
car doesn't have brakes? What are you doing over there?
Yeah, so no, we love that feedback, and if anyone wants to look at terms and privacy, we have to finalize that before the pilot. And right now we want to be privacy centric, but we don't want to cut off aspects of data that would really help an institution, but we don't know what those are. So what you're looking at here is what happens when you collect everything, the transcripts, the audio. We do not intend to do that at all for VerifyDial, which is in proof of concept phase, because we don't think people want their voices recorded, even the transcript. So what we've been doing with the scammers is training the summarization. So you can summarize a call and then delete the audio and the transcript to extract the elements, which is why we built this in the first place. A fun side effect is that we have thousands upon thousands of scammer calls. And they're pretty interesting. Yeah. So,
Oh,
So interesting.
yeah. And oftentimes it's an AI versus another AI. So it's really weird. I will share in the, you can listen to more.
You're trying to give me money back?
That's our AI.
Well, bless your heart. How do I do that? What do I need to do?
Ma'am, so electric company already got your information. You pay your bill by checkbook, I am right?
Oh, well, yes, I think so.
This is amazing.
Is that what you need me to pay?
Ma'am.
Is that
So I want to be clear, my
So-
listeners understand what you've done here. You've created synthetic identities that are AIs that are waiting for scammers to have real phones. And
Yeah.
when that happens, which will happen to everybody who has a phone that's turned on, it then answers and basically it role plays with them to collect as much information, just like you would for an attacker, except for this is a voice honeypot.
Yeah, and big banks in Australia are actually using this to route calls they think are scams that try to get into your systems, and then they detect them and then they give them to an AI like that. There's a company there called, I think, Appagate. But what I did is I found an old company that actually had pitched and failed on Shark Tank, Jolly Roger Telephone Company, and they had developed this honeypot to waste scammers' time. And I said, well, that's interesting, but what if we cranked it to 11 and I got some real heavy AI compute and we tried to instead have it extract information from the scammer systems instead of waste their times?
Well, can you play that crypto romance one?
Yes, actually, what I'll do is I have the YouTube just for your time's sake because I don't want to cannibalize, and I'll post it currently in. Oops,
Yeah, I
sorry.
really would like to hear that one because that one's near and dear to my heart. I've just seen so much of it, and obviously, I'm sorry about your mother-in-law. And some people, it wrecks their lives. I mean, you
Yes.
know, they're expecting this big return on the money to come back, and it's not going to. And then they've taken everything that they own that they're never going to earn back. They don't have the time to recover from that because they're 75, 80, and it is so sad. Um, and the fact we can't talk them out of it when they show up is more heartbreaking, and it just speaks to this state that we're in, around loneliness and with our elderly groups that, elder abuse, those sorts of things. It just seems like this is the sort of thing we need. And I love the fact there isn't an ask here. You're not asking anybody to buy anything. You're just saying, hey, help me acquire 411, right? That's the ask here, right?
Yeah, like the whole, I looked at different models of how to bring this, and I was like, there's the government approach, there's what I would call like the VeriSign or like industry consortium approach. Government approach is to centralized, in my opinion. The consortium sounds nice, but it blocks other industries. And the biggest problem is education, right? The dream is that, business to business use 411 to verify business invoices. All of us business owners, we get phantom invoices, right? Like all the time.
Yep.
It's hard to figure out what they are. Consumers are using it, right? So it's not just, hey, you're, more elderly and cognitively impaired, and you need to check everything with a scam hotline, which creates a stigma. It's I use it, you use it, our kids use it, everyone uses it. It's just one number. And it turns out it's not a tech problem. The unique IDs are there on most of the bills. A lot of people already support this concept. It's a herding cat issue. And from being in carbon removal, those are audacious problems, but I call them like country club companies where it's a nice talking point and it's social good. And I think it gets people excited. And so I pitch people as the legacy of tell your kids, tell your grandkids you reclaimed 411, and help out if you want. And it's been fun.
Did you say that's a short code now too, so you could forward a text to it as well?
Forward attack, yeah. So what you get into, technically, it's actually a switch. We could just switch on texting and image
Okay.
analysis.
I didn't know how it was set up these days.
Yeah, the issue is leak, right? So in a phone call, it's minimal data collection. But the second you allow people to text you or send you images of their, hey, what's up, Scott? Good to see you. Of your screen, right? It opens a whole can of worms where like they're taking pictures of their actual online banking stuff plus whatever else is on their screen. And if you enable texting, you really want people to enable screenshotting. I think it's reasonable, but if you look at current bill verification patterns, for most people over 60, 80-20 is they still call in. And what that means is that if we do a bill verification center, for those companies that have high call center costs, they'd like to get rid of that. We can instead verify for a small fee, less than the $4 to $6 it takes to field a call, save them the money and fund the initiative. And I think like the art of building ethical businesses is you don't want it to be a charity. You also don't want it to be a Palantir or Flock. So how do you find that middle ground where you can, create value and share in that value creation without being extractive or exploitive, which is needed for this gray zone between what a government service should be, in a private consortium. So that's the goal here with this one.
Brian, this is Glenn. A couple of questions. I saw you responded to Gary that so you do answer to email scams as well. So text you haven't turned on, but if anybody calls in, they can explain an email they received.
Yeah, you can explain any text. You can say a sketchy looking passenger pigeon just showed up on your doorstep. And it'll do that analysis. The intake right now is through voice, primarily because we focused on like elder, romance as like the edge. There an example is in telco security. You may have heard of something called Stir Shaken. Stir Shaken skipped copper landlines, which unfortunately are some of the most disenfranchised, usually older Americans in the States. I see from Cynthia, are you working with any legislative to bring this? Yes, I would say that I am, but it's actually two women considerably smarter than me. They're on our website. So one is Michelle Thomas and the other one is Rosemary. And so collectively, they worked on all those abbreviated dialing codes, but they are working with state AG offices, submitting legislation, as well as the difficult part with this idea is it used to be too crazy for anyone to care. Now it's starting to get too valuable, where you don't want incumbents either that run 411 or think about like early warning services just comes in and says, we're just going to do this for the large, companies, right? And so now it's about, okay, how do we like circle up the wagons as there's some momentum to make sure that it is inclusive and neutral? In one industry, one way or another, or one class doesn't grab it like they did in 159. Great solution, but they blocked out all their competitors or people that weren't in. And I don't think that's the play here. I think we want to be very inclusive, and that's my opinion.
So the credit union leagues that have actually given you letters of support, and I think a couple of credit unions individually have as well. What is it that they've pledged? Is it part of that advocacy process, or what is it that they've signed on for?
Yeah, well, if anyone's interested, we can, send out the letter. I learned this trick from, weird carbon removal. The letter does not endorse the private company. It endorses the concept of it. And that's really important because, these are advocacy groups, and until there's a critical mass, they don't want to, they don't want to support a vendor. So it just says this is not an endorsement of your technology, but it's an endorsement of the concept. Because generally when I pitch it, the people's reaction is, who the heck are you again? How do I know this won't cause more problems? And gosh darn it, it's a pretty good idea though. And then it's just building trust. And a lot of that trust comes from other organizations, coming in. So yeah, happy to share that. And we're very transparent.
So they haven't necessarily committed to doing anything. They're just giving the endorsement saying, hey, we care about this. This is something that's worth going after.
Yeah, my pitch is, it's a non-pitch. I say, look, I know this is a bit of a moonshot to try to go get this, and you don't have to do anything. You just sign the letter, sit back, and then I'll update you as other people sign and as our traction comes. And what we say is, even if we fail, as a try, hopefully somebody else will get it in the future, and then some engage more deeply. So AAPL, for example, the Association of Private Lenders, which is a fascinating use case of like someone that sits on an edge of several industries, they have gone through the process, I would say, more quickly than everyone else. So they signed the letter very early, actually. I really appreciate them, before it hit critical mass. And then they said, okay, we have our numbers. Because for us, right, and the reason we work with leagues is it's hard to get those smaller institutions' numbers correct.
Mhm.
They are actually the most spoofable. So we ran 700 numbers of smaller banks and credit unions through Gemini. 3 to 5% were wrong and 1% were verified scams. And we were like, this
Wow.
is like not cool at all. And it turns out nobody had the verified number list. So, we have to do it manually, but we'd like to work in partnership with associations. An example is it's not our role to say which HVAC providers are legitimate or not. But if a trade association already has that list, we can ingest that and use them as a proxy of who trusted institutions are to get the numbers correct. So typically the letter's signed, then there's a number registry agreement. You're not responsible for giving us the right numbers. We just ask if you do know they change, let us know. And then after that, it's generally, a pilot agreement, particularly around billing and invoicing, where we print the number, a numerical code, and a system on the bottom of the bills, and we do a test to see, are we actually deflecting call center? So if someone calls in and they're enrolled in a billing partner, we will verify if it's right or not. And if it's not, meaning they're not enrolled, we can't just say this bill's bad because that's anti-competitive. All we can say is, they're not a partner, so we can't verify, so we'll send you to their number. And so that's kind of the trade-off. Because if the
Has
number's really
anybody that you've
successful,
spoken?
it drives calls, and that is a cost. So we want to minimize that too.
Yeah. Has anybody you've spoken to had pushback around the idea of being as inclusive as you are across sectors? I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
sounds like that's the way to go, but I'm wondering if anybody's kind of saying, no, no, let's keep it to us.
Oh yeah, yeah. I pitched Meta early on, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And they're like, "Well, who's going to own the verification?" And I said, "I don't think anybody should own the verification. That's the problem. That's the problem, in my opinion, with the ID laws and like collecting everything is like it centralizes one hackable place of knowledge, where really you want it to be more distributed, or you want to be a super light verification method. So we're not verifying if a call that's coming into your phone is real,
Yeah.
right? All we are doing is giving you a way to verify what if your inbound message is authentic out of bound. So it's called out of bound or out of band verification, and or a pause and interrupt framework is a way to think about it.
I saw Cynthia just put something in the chat too about working with the Zooms of the world and things like that. Is that something you kind of gave the Skype example before?
Yes, I think where if we pull this is, if we pull this off and if we can herd the cats, which is a big if, but I'm optimistic, where this will go over time is like APIs pinging back and forth. So Microsoft's a great example. How do you know if Microsoft is really giving you a call? They have an army of contractors calling. One of their phone systems should be able to verify what their outbound calls are. But that data is not being fed to any out-of-bound verification system. So I would imagine that the call center integration may come in the future if we, prove the basic. I see another one. Oh, that's a long. Oh, it's John. John, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, yeah. I was just trying to, just so I don't forget. I'm getting old, dude. I'm not like Scott. I don't have these steel trap for a mind or Randy or these guys. My questions were one, it seems like an opportunity for you to create blacklists to fund your plan. So you having all these, I know they're spoof numbers, but the phone numbers you're collecting in the Blackbeard database would be useful. Secondly, the one I find most interesting is all these other three-digit codes, because this leads to my third question. All these other three-digit codes are owned by, as you pointed out, government, right? And I went out and I looked on the docket when you first put this out there. You don't have any competition. No one's fighting you to try to get this, but you would be the only private company that is backing a three-digit number in the United States. And that leads me to it's a three-part question. That leads me to the third part of it, which is what if I just wanted to white label your service as a service for my members and make it an extension off my 800 number or something and publish it that way?
Yeah, yeah. There's an API and all of that's, on the table and doable. Building Blackbeard was actually the hard part. Blackbeard becoming VerifyDial was fairly easy, and it can get plugged into, specific numbers. So we're looking right now at pushing out, I would say a mnemonically difficult to mistake, 1-800 number. Not something like 1-800-Flowers, but a 1-800-555, 444,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that we could
Similar
do some sort of
concept.
SIP redirection too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's likely what AAPL or whoever, is able to pilot it on their bills and invoice. The requirements for the pilot is, you have to have the ability to print it on your bills, which not everybody does, and then we want to at least A/B test it with your call center, and that's to prove, yeah, certain people will, do that instead of dialing. I certainly believe it's the case because I did this with my property tax bill the other day is I had to verify it. I had to find where the heck that number was, hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then call in. And yeah,
I'll be
there's,
honest with you. When I see things that I think are weird, I oftentimes will just run them through Claude or run them through. I'll
yeah,
screenshot them and toss them in there. And I mean, it doesn't have what you have, which is obviously a trained data, a data LLM. But yeah, I love all this. I'll let other people ask questions. I put all mine in the thingy there. So
yeah. Thanks, everyone.
What's the feedback you've gotten from credit unions and community banks, Brian, that you've talked to? I mean, what's the hurdles, what's the challenges, or what's the speed to implementation?
Yeah, well, there's really no implementation, right? So we've gone and basically built the database that will forward. So, the integration is education.
Right,
And,
right.
the hesitancy is obviously financial institutions have historically not been the best to educate their existing, member or customer base. But that's why I think the solution is to do it not for one industry. Meaning, I think you hear, hey, this is the number you want to use from your financial institution. That's okay. But if you hear it from your library, your
Yeah,
firefighter, your
yeah,
police, your government, your grocery, your pharmacist, your doctor, all of a sudden, I don't think educating 300 million people for
for
this is
sure.
ridiculous. 411, it would happen. And we're very happy with, if you guys remember McGruff, the crime dog, like
Hmm.
there. So
Take a
they
bite out of
are
crime.
potentially a marketing partner for this and maybe the brand. And they have a large billboard network. So we're slowly
oh,
herding cats.
I thought you were
Uh,
gonna have Blackbeard the pirate. Um,
no,
I was
Blackbeard, we don't show so much, except, the data
I was
nerd.
excited about him, Big
Kind of
Hook,
under,
and
But
um,
yeah, it's audacious and we're grateful for any visibility. So thanks for everyone.
no, big ideas
for
need
sure.
big platforms, but importantly, they just need someone like you to drive it. I see David Lindner on here and Randy. I know they got to have some questions. I'm going to throw
Yeah.
Randy first because his video's on, but I'm going to warm up David Lindner. He's not getting away because he always has 10,000 questions, especially him having been a previous Fiserv person. I think something SwitchLink would look at. So, what you got, Randy?
I just think it's super cool, Brian. Hey, how are you? But so, I mean, what I'm a little bit confused on right now is still like, can credit unions use this today? Which I think John has kind of been asking some different ways to like connect. And then, how is it work? How accurate is it for some? I mean, we're getting so many different weird ones. Like really the link, the URL thing is the biggest thing to me. I know somebody mentioned it, but I'm not sure I like quite captured, how it's combating like crazy URLs.
What do you mean crazy URLs? Like,
Well, like you get a URL in a scam email, like should I click on this? Like seems like it relies really heavily on a verified phone number. Is that correct? Like it
50-50. So the verified phone number, it actually the chain is first, it does a heuristical analysis, right? So like there's all like, is there time pressure? Are they asking you to like contact them in a weird message, right? Like anything involving Zelle, it probably, is something that merits review. But you can actually read out the domain. And the interesting thing about this is the bet is just that AI is going to get smarter, and we just plug the next best model in. So it's really what many people would consider a wrapper, where yes, we're pre-training it, but it's not as though we've tried to have the world's best AI. This is just using Google's best AI that has the quickest latency. And so even over the next 2 years, by the time I would say in 3 years, if we're successful, the 411 rollout will be complete. And at that point, the models will be a lot smarter with a lot less latency, and this will only get better. So what you're seeing really is, I would say, like the barely viable model where it's quick enough and smart enough to get it, most of the time and redirect. But the capabilities will get, we're riding the coattails of the frontier models, essentially.
And Brian, were you saying also that there's something that people can load on their phone that would like identify a scam phone number before it comes in, and instead of blocking it like Apple does so that I don't even get the call, it actually takes the call and then screws with it with an AI? Because like I have friends that like screw with like the scammers on their texts all
Those
the
are some of
time.
my favorite videos online.
Right. And I tell them, like, don't do this. Now they know it's a real number, right? But they don't care. They just, they just want to play around. So
yes, I'll send you the guys that are involved in this now. They were part of Jolly
Haven't
Roger.
felt total organization until
They're
you try
involved in
the
the
guy
Jolly
like
Roger telephone company that does exactly this. And so I found them and said, hey, I think we can do something better. But if you're curious to see their Shark Tank pitch, we don't do on-device premium protection. Yeah, but we do have the ability that, say you're getting scam calls that are trying to actually break into, say, your credit union, right? Like pretending to be a vendor or someone else, to authorize a payment or get leverage, right? So Australian banks right now are taking a very similar tech to Blackbeard. And when they detect a deepfake voice, they don't even have their humans pick it up. They just transfer it to an agent to extract information about the attack. And, UK and Australia have regulatory pressure to do that, but I have heard rumors of large banks in the United States starting to investigate that. So we think that Blackbeard will be helpful in that fight. But it's
Well,
been,
even in a post-mortem to go over, for example, the transcripts you do have in a Genesis platform or one of these call center platforms where it could run analysis and say, hey, you should look at these 20 calls. I want to let David go. He turned on his camera. It's very rare he does it. He doesn't like to be seen. So go ahead, David.
That's why he's a silhouette right now.
Yeah. It's like a witness protection program.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm first question, John, have you recorded this?
Yeah, we do, and we put it out, so you'll have it.
Perfect. So I'm going to make this comment. And I really don't want Brian to go back and cover all of that. I joined very late, but I got to tell you, I'm really interested in this. So at Desert, we were trying to combat outbound call spoofing. So we're pursuing a solution with some technology that is really, it's difficult because the carriers all have to get involved. But we would actually take metadata from the Genesis cloud, and it would accompany the outbound call. So if the carrier didn't see the metadata, then they know that, okay, wait a minute, this didn't actually come from Desert Financial. But it's a complicated and a bit of a laborious solution. But I will go back and listen to your presentation, Brian, because this is something that Desert's really interested in. So sorry, John, no meaningful questions from me today.
Oh no, actually what you just said is very meaningful, because it comes back to this next thing and why what he's talking about is also very important. the amount of information we have and the new margins, and I keep saying that, and you've heard me say this a million times. Uh, if you're a CEO of a credit union or you work there, your ultimate goal is somehow you have to triple the size of the place in the next 2 or 3 years without adding any FTE. One way to do that is that, this like big success we have with the outbound calling with Clutch on the for the collections. And what was interesting, Brian, was, when we were going through this, we got calls where we had one member who was just kind of saying, kind of telling the truth about, hey, the reason this has happened is I've been sick, and it had so much empathy, but that was because our team spent so much time going through and training it and talking to it and doing those sorts of things. But we need those calls to work if we're going to continue with our business plans. And if they become something of a pariah, meaning people are afraid to pick them up and they can't tell the difference between a real one and a fake one. And that's where like some of these things like watermarking that we're hearing about recently are coming up in the GDPR. So I think this is, but I don't prefer that. I think Brian's approach with regards to having more respect than say a Flock or a Palantir is the right way to go. And I've always appreciated it's something we sort of bonded on early on when we met. I think that for me, David, so I think that's a very appropriate question because a lot of people are seeing financial institutions use the outbound calling, and here's one of the issues is those voices. Well, they're using 11 labs. Well, anybody can go grab that voice. And so, if they get used to this voice and it isn't something that, we think about watermarking, but our voices are our watermark, I mean, you can tell who they are and what they are. So I think this technology is going to expand because this problem is so pervasive. And Brian didn't even show any of the stats on this. I know the stats; they're ridiculous. They're not just calling for like they're talking like a 1,000% increase over 2026, and that's on top of another 1,000% increase from 2025 to 2026 in this sort of stuff. And they're preying on primarily the elderly, which is you know a lot of our population as far as credit unions. So I think it's in our best interest to produce these things. So no, I don't. I thought it was more insightful than you think, actually. Brian just keeps nodding his head. I'm assuming he's
No, yeah, yeah. I'm honored to get so much time. No, I mean, absolutely. And if you look at the YouTube videos I shared, I think I shared one. I have not the Shark Tank ones, the ones earlier at 324. I don't know if I spoke to this, but we just saw a new attack through the Blackbeard network, which I describe as sort of measuring COVID through sewage. Like you're sampling all the calls and then determining what the attack is. It was very creepy, and I couldn't understand what it was initially. It was an AI voice. It would appear pretty muffled using TV like background masking. And all it did was build rapport, then ask what our AI agent, in this case, it got Wade Tillman, our cowboy, had for breakfast. And he responded, well, I had biscuits. And it said, well, did you make the gravy? And then it said, well, did your wife make the biscuits? And our agent said, no, I'm single. And it said, well, now that I know you're single, I'll call back more often. And then tried to end the call. And then the next day it called back, it repeated everything it learned the prior day, and then asked how he was doing, and then wished him sweet dreams. Said he would call back. And this is public phone lines. These numbers are like our honeypot. These are not seeded on the darknet. These are numbers that have not been in service for 15 years, meaning the only thing we catch are people that are running wide attacks on the entire telco infrastructure.
right.
And
You're not
we've
catching
seen,
when they're targeting from the dark web because you don't have those numbers.
no, no,
But
and we haven't
you
done
could
that.
seed the dark web. I could help you with that.
Yeah, I'd love that actually. If you want to
Let's do
get,
a fake pump out of we'll do David's credit union. I'm sure they'll be fine with it. We'll put a pretend desert financial file out there. They'll get all excited about that.
yeah, but I mean
But with all
that's
fake numbers,
terrifying.
except for every other number will be Dave's actual cell phone. But other than that,
Yeah.
that way he
So
could talk to the
if
scammers.
anybody comes to your credit unions and says they need to send money to Brenda, which is this agent's name, do not send money to Brenda. Like
Well, what about
it impacts the
bilingual?
account.
What
Yeah, it
about
works in
bilingual?
40 languages. We can do scams in 40 languages. But
Is that happening a lot? Like, do you have any examples in Blackbeard of bilingual ones?
usually the calls are in English, but the background chatter, can be in Spanish or,
Is that something that the AI would pick up on if it starts to pick up like on that background chatter seems like a tell.
Yeah, yeah, and if you've seen like Trump just passed basically like enabling cyber pirates. So, we think that we're working with counterterrorism, director of intelligence, counterterrorism professionals for government subcontracting of the data. But there's a lot of stuff that could be done. It's not doing us so much good just sitting there. So if we can do more good with it, we're always open. And if you want to see something on the dark net, there's a law, actually, I think it's called Quitam, but if you break, say, a Medicare durable fraud ring, in theory, in 5 years, you can collect a percentage of assets if you track the criminal transnational group and then
So
disrupt
like
it.
an annuity.
Well, I've often wondered why can't we just give out poisoned, Medicaid numbers, right? And so when they run them, they run like a hot card. And it's same
Yeah.
for
Well,
like
it's like including counter or marked bills,
Yeah, well, there's some laws against that, is what I've learned.
Mm.
But I think that is probably the next frontier is, these defensive networks are essentially tapping into the Karen energy and getting people to report scams, which is like, threat telemetry. And then that can be weaponized into offensive capabilities because this has to stop. I understand that people are trying to feed themselves and there's economic pressures all over the world, but it's the financial equivalent of assault. And I don't think it should be tolerated. I don't think it should be allowed to just happen so easy. One of the saddest things I listen is the kids that get call in, right? Just being mean to elderly people that are our AIs. And I'm like, this is terrible behavior. We have to, as a society, not allow it and not promote it. It's just too permissible right now. So while I have empathy for the other side, it doesn't mean I'm not going to set up this solution and make
So
it
you
dangerous.
don't just need big groups to do this. I know I signed your petition, right? But individual people can do this, right? So like,
Anybody.
there's a link on your LinkedIn that all you got to do is click and add your name to it. And that doesn't get sent straight to the NSA or anything like that, right?
Yeah, no, we don't submit any letters right now. So when we
Okay.
get a letter from, a credit union league, we don't want to put any league or organization out exposed, right? From
Right.
learning about carbon removal, it's much more safe for everybody for 100 to band together. But getting from 0 to 100 takes time. And we're at that 17. But if anyone wants to reach out, I can share the support letter. We do have independent institutions sign. Sometimes we have leagues, and every little bit helps. It's a pretty monumental goal, and the people that still have 411 are not going to let go of it easily. I estimate it makes them somewhere between 50 to 100 million dollars still, but I think it could be used to save more money than that, frankly.
Well, money aside, your mother-in-law's story, the story I told at the top. Okay, we got 7 minutes left. Does anybody else have any questions? Glenn, did you have any more?
It's not really a question, but something related that it kind of reminds me of the honeypot situation and the data that VerifyDial is gathering. Did anybody else see the story about Google acquiring the entire database from Spirit Airlines, which is just fascinating to me? Apparently, out of bankruptcy, they're paying $10 million. It's unclear exactly what it is they're acquiring. And now the pilot and flight attendants employees union is actually contesting it because I guess it included a lot of Slack channel and things like that, communications, which were supposedly going to be scrubbed, but no one's 100% clear. But it's funny because I was following this on, I forget if it was on X or wherever, and there was like this almost evenly split divergence of opinion. Like, is that the bargain of the century, 10 million, or is it wildly overpriced? And just trying to think of what they could do with a whole bunch of flight data, what they could do just from an AI training standpoint. But it's just interesting to see Spirit Airlines out of bankruptcy. Who would have thought it'd be Google buying stuff from them?
Yeah, but you can catch all that off of ADP over down on flight time. Every flight, exactly where they go, the tail numbers, what their routes are. Like,
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, something about what's sitting in this mother lode of whatever is appealing. At least, I guess maybe it's just a 10,000 or $10 million Hail Mary. It's pocket change for Google to see what they can do to throw it into AI and what they can come up with.
well, one thing I know about Brian is they always has a backup plan. So what happens if you fail at 411? I know you got something behind this.
Yeah, the 411's not really needed to pull this off. I think it's the gold standard. It's what's considered an N11 code, and there just aren't that many.
No,
So
it's only 8, I think.
yeah, yeah, but it's so
9. 1, 2, 3,
audacious.
4, 5, 7, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. Yeah, 2, 1, 1. Yep.
I find that like you set a ridiculous goal, like I'm going to remove 1 million tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. I'm going to reclaim 4 and 1. What it does is it rallies people to it because it's so ridiculous. And but yes, I mean we can get a 1-800, 444, 5555, and that could work 80% as well. But I still think that the gold standard is standardization, and frankly, I'm a big believer in these N11 codes. So the question is can you bundle enough value into it that it becomes a sovereign protection mechanism? So yes, eventually, if you've heard like Elon, they think cell phones will eventually just be an AI, and this will evolve into an API behind it. So everything is API based.
Yeah,
The phone
it's a filter basically that
Yeah.
everyone's going to have a front-end agent. I totally believe that. And we'll see what Johnny Ives comes up with from OpenAI, but there is some sort of new form factor out there. I just don't know if it's a device. I think it's probably glasses and a puck or something.
Before
For
we
now.
sign off, I saw somebody made a comment in the chat. Brian, are you pitching this anyplace in the conference circuit over the course of the next few months?
Ooh, not if I can help it. I'm a bit of an introvert, I come here for John, and Glenn, and I'm willing to come out. What you will see is probably people in our network.
Okay.
So if of like Robert or Bob from, the both credit union and bank, insurance association, you'll run into him and others. So my little, spiders are out there. I will present on occasion, or if someone says, hey, you really need to be there, but we're right now walking this balance between being loud and being quiet. And
Got it.
for a while, no one would listen. And now too many people are listening. So it's that, 3D chess of how do you
Sure.
pull something like this out and get enough support before the incumbents start to block and lobby. Because that will happen. The people that have it, they're like, no one wants to let go of 50 to 100 million, easy money you're making from grandma's still calling in, easily. But I think that this is a national security issue.
Well, it's going to dwindle off on its own.
Yeah.
And so, and it's more than a national security issue. It's a culture issue. Having seen some of the elderly who've been through this and the devastation it doesn't just bring to them, because remember, there are people counting on this money being handed down.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy, really. I'm glad, of all people, I'm not surprised you're doing something about it. I'm happy that you're on it.
Well, I have to jump now and try to convince FIS of this fact. So I wish me luck.
You should take Randy with you. He could do it, or David, either one.
Yeah. Well, if anyone has Pfizer, I have Jack Henry, FIS, Pfizer now and then.
Oh no, the FIS. I was thinking Pfizer. David knows all of them from there. So
Epic. Believe it or not, there's only about 7 major bill aggregators. Unfortunately, they seem to hate each other. So we'll see if we can get over that. I'm a big believer. In the meantime, throw your support. We want to approach the telcos and the bill aggregators with as
Do you have
large
Wyoming? Colorado and Wyoming, you should talk to Jim. I see him on the call, Jim Yates.
We do not. I don't think so.
There's only 8 people in Wyoming, including Jim. But
the league? Talking the league?
Yeah, we still need Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Illinois.
Well, Colorado and Wyoming's league is the same.
Yeah, Oregon.
And in Arizona too, it's called Big West or something like that.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
I might be able to help you there. So
Go West.
Go West. Yes, Jim. That's it. Jim, you should hook him up with a call if you care. If you think it's worth it.
Oh, wish me luck.
All right.
Good luck,
This
Brian.
is the end. Take care, everybody.
Right on.